What if the single most powerful force available to you is something you've been generating every single day of your life without even knowing it? What if every thought you think, every mental demand you make, every quiet expectation you carry with you into a room is silently shaping your circumstances, drawing people toward you, and building a life you either consciously choose or unconsciously stumble into? That is the promise of this book. It was written over 100 years ago by a man who had spent years investigating the hidden powers of the human mind, and yet every word of it reads as though it were written specifically for you, right now, in this moment. Welcome to Thought Force in Business and Everyday Life by William Walker Atkinson. Before we begin the lessons themselves, let me take a moment to introduce the man behind these words and the remarkable little book you are about to hear. William Walker Atkinson was born in Baltimore, Maryland in 1862. By the time he reached his late 30s, he had lived a full and difficult life. He had practiced law, he had worked in business, and he had suffered a near-complete collapse, physically, mentally, and financially. He described hitting what he called rock bottom, a point of such exhaustion and despair that many men simply do not come back from it. But Atkinson did come back, and the tool he used to rebuild himself was not money or medicine or the help of powerful friends. It was thought. It was a deliberate, disciplined redirecting of his own mental energy. And the transformation was so complete, so undeniable, that he devoted the rest of his life to understanding exactly how it had happened and teaching those principles to anyone willing to listen. He became one of the most prolific writers of a New Thought movement, a broad philosophical current that swept through the English-speaking world in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He wrote under his own name and under several pen names. He founded magazines. He lectured widely, and he wrote book after book after book. This particular work, Thought Force in Business and Everyday Life, is one of his most practical and direct. It is not a book of vague spiritual poetry. It is a set of lessons written in the plain-spoken, no-nonsense voice of a man who wants results. Atkinson himself says in his preface that he deliberately sacrificed literary elegance in order to be clear. He used plain words. He used direct sentences. He occasionally used slang. Because he was not trying to impress you. He was trying to change you. He prepared this book from the notes of his actual lectures, the syllabi, as he called them, of teachings he had given in-person classes of real people, people who were struggling with fear, failure, timidity, and self-doubt. People who wanted to know not just that the power of the mind was real, but how to use it, how to develop it, how to put to work in their actual lives. And so he wrote this for you. There are 15 lessons in all. They build upon each other. They range from practical exercises for the eye and the voice to profound meditations on the nature of the self. And at every step, Atkinson is guiding you toward the same great realization, that the force you need is already within you. It always has been. You simply need to learn how to wake it up. So settle in, breathe slowly, and let us begin. Salutatory. Atkinson begins his first lesson with a word that sets the tone for everything that follows. That word is results. He had noticed, with some frustration, that most writers on the subject of personal magnetism and mental influence spent the vast majority of their time doing two things. First, they try to prove that the phenomenon existed at all. And second, they promoted whatever pet theory they happened to favor, whether that was vegetarianism or celibacy or the deep breathing of some mysterious atmospheric force they imagined charged a person like a battery. Now, Atkinson is careful not to ridicule these ideas entirely. He actually has a certain warmth toward them. He says he sympathizes with vegetarians. He sees the value in continence. He is genuinely enthusiastic about deep breathing and believes that if it were universally practiced, much sickness would disappear from the earth. But, and this is the important word, these things are not the prime factors in production of personal magnetism. They are good habits. They are not the secret. The real secret, Atkinson says, has been discovered not by writers or theorists, but by a small number of earnest investigators, people who went out and actually experimented, people who sat with a phenomenon, tested it, observed it, and worked with it until they understood how it operated. And Atkinson counts himself among these investigators. He has spent years studying this subject. He has conducted countless experiments, and he has arrived at conclusions that are grounded not in belief, but in demonstrated fact. He makes a bold declaration right at the opening of this work. He says he would insult your intelligence if he were to spend pages trying to convince you that personal magnetism exists. Every intelligent person, he says, already knows it exists. You have seen it. You have felt it. You have met people who had it. And you have met people who did not. You have walked into rooms and immediately felt drawn to certain individuals, and just as immediately felt repelled by others. You have seen certain men command the attention and cooperation of everyone around them, seemingly without effort, while others of equal or superior intelligence are ignored and overlooked. That is personal magnetism. And no one with open eyes needs to have its existence proven. What you need, what you actually want, is to understand how to develop it and use it in your own life. And that, Atkinson says, is exactly what he intends to teach you. He makes one more important statement before closing this opening lesson. He says he has no pet theory to push. He is not asking you to adopt a particular belief or join a particular school of thought. He is asking you to try the methods he will share, observe the results, and form your own conclusions from your own experience. In fact, he closes with these words, I will ask you to accept nothing that you cannot prove. That is a striking promise from a teacher, and it is one that Atkinson keeps throughout everything that follows. He is not asking for faith. He is asking for attention, effort, and honest observation. Let that sink in for a moment, because that invitation to test things for yourself rather than simply believe on authority is itself one of the most empowering ideas in the book. You do not have to take anyone's word for what your mind is capable of. You can find out directly. And this course of lessons is designed to show you exactly how to do that. The nature of the force. Now Atkinson turns to the question that is probably already forming in your mind. All right, he has our attention. But what exactly is this force? What is personal magnetism, really? What is actually happening when one person walks into a room and changes the atmosphere? When one individual speaks and others immediately lean in, when certain people simply seem to draw good circumstances, willing helpers, and fortunate opportunities toward them like iron filings to a magnet. Atkinson begins by correcting a common misconception. Most people, he says, imagine personal magnetism as a kind of physical current, a literal force radiating outward from the magnetic individual and pulling people toward them the way a lodestone pulls iron. And while this image contains a germ of truth, it is ultimately misleading. What we call personal magnetism has no real connection to electricity or to magnetism in the technical sense. It does not flow from the body like a charge. What it actually is thought. More specifically, it is a subtle current of thought waves and thought vibrations that are continually projected outward from the human mind. Every thought you create is a force. Every single one. And that force radiates outward from you, traveling like a ray of light, influencing the minds of others who may be far removed from you in space. A strong thought, Atkinson says, will go on its errand charge of mighty power. It will beat down the instinctive resistance of the minds of others to outside impressions. A weak thought will be unable to gain entrance, and repeated thoughts along the same lines, sent one after another like steady drops of water on a stone, will eventually wear through even the strongest resistance. This is not a metaphor. Atkinson is describing a real phenomenon, and he wants you to understand that you are already doing this all the time. The question is whether you're doing it consciously and skillfully or unconsciously and carelessly. We are all, he says, influenced far more than we realize by the thoughts of others, not their spoken opinions. Their thoughts, the silent emanations of their mental state, their expectations, their attitudes toward us. A great writer, he notes, has summed this up in 3 words that contain a whole philosophy. Thoughts are things. They are not merely private, invisible, inconsequential little flickers happening inside your skull. They are real forces that go out into the world and have real effects. And here is something that many people find surprising when they first encounter it. Your thoughts do not only affect other people, they affect you permanently. You are, right now, a creation of your own thinking. The person you become, your character, your habits, your physical appearance, your level of energy, the quality of your relationships, all of it reflects the dominant pattern of your thoughts over time. Atkinson puts it very directly. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That is not poetry. That is description. He even points out something you have probably observed yourself. When a person changes their occupation, their general character and appearance tend to change along with it. Why? Because the new occupation brings a new train of thought, and thoughts take form in action. They take form in character. They take form over time, even in the physical body. A man who thinks energy manifests energy. A man who thinks courage manifests courage. A man who thinks I can and I will gets there, while the man who thinks I cannot gets left behind. You know this is true. You have seen it. You may have even experienced both sides of it yourself. And then Atkinson introduces one of the most important concepts in the entire book. He calls it the adductive power of thought. The word adductive comes from the Latin meaning to bring to draw toward. And the principle is this. Thoughts attract similar thoughts. Good thoughts draw other good thoughts toward you. Strong. Confident thoughts draw other confident energies toward you from the great invisible field of thought surrounding all of us. And fear thoughts, worry thoughts, I cannot thoughts, draw exactly those same kind of thoughts from that same surrounding field. Amplify your burden, darkening your world, making your defeat feel inevitable. Think fear, and you draw toward yourself all the fear energy in your neighborhood. The harder you push that fear, the more comes flooding in. Think fearlessness and confidence, and all the courageous energy within your radius begins moving toward you, strengthening and supporting you. And then Atkinson says something with tremendous urgency. He identifies the 2 root weeds that must be pulled out before any of the other work can take hold. Those 2 weeds are fear and hate. Fear and all its children, worry, doubt, timidity, lack of self-respect, morbid ideas, and hate and all its children, jealousy, spite, malice, envy, slander. These two, he says, are at the bottom of more misery, more unhappiness, more failure than anything else in the world. He closes this lesson with what he says will be his final message to his dearest friend if he knew his words would be his last on earth. He would shout it as loudly as his vocal organs would permit. Let go of fear and hate thoughts, not because it is morally required of you, because those thoughts are actively destroying your life. They are the source of your failures. They are the weight on the rope that you are trying to climb. Let go of them and watch what happens. How thought force can aid you. In this lesson, Atkinson moves from the nature of the force to the practical question of how it works for you in daily life. And he grounds everything in what he considers to be the most honest and straightforward definition of success. Success in life, he says, depends very materially upon the possession of the quality of attracting and influencing other people. You may have every other quality, brilliant ideas, technical skills, tireless work ethic, integrity of character, but if you lack the subtle force that draws others to you, interests them in your plans, and moves them to cooperate with you, you will always be working at a disadvantage. You will be like a scientist whose discoveries are quietly taken by a more outward-facing man and turned into profit. The scientist does the work. The magnetic man gets the reward. Atkinson is quite realistic about this. He is not moralizing about whether it is fair. He is simply describing how the world of men and affairs actually operates. And he is entirely direct about what he means by success. Financial reward. The material means to surround yourself with the best things in life, not money worshipped as an end in itself, but money as a natural result of genuine service and genuine influence. Money as a measure of how effectively your force is operating in the world. Now, he says, how is this wonderful power acquired? And the answer he gives is by mastering the law of mental control. That phrase, the law of mental control, is Atkinson's umbrella term for everything he teaches in this book. It is the foundation beneath personal magnetism, beneath success in business, beneath happiness in life. The man or woman who masters this law, he says, finds the world an oyster to be opened and enjoyed in comfort. Even someone who only partly absorbs these ideas, who learns a theory without following through on every exercise, will still become stronger and more positive simply from the exposure. He then lays out 4 specific ways that thought can aid you, and it is worth sitting with each of these, because they map directly onto the lessons that follow. The first way is through the power of direct suggestion in personal interactions. By developing your positive thought force and learning how to use it consciously in the moment, in the tone of your voice, the steadiness of your gaze, the manner of your approach, you become capable of interesting people in your plans, enlisting their cooperation, and influencing them generally. This is what most people mean when they talk about charisma or people's skills. But Atkinson is telling you it is not an accident of personality. It is a learnable skill. The second way is through direct thought vibrations consciously projected from your mind toward the mind of another. This goes a step beyond mere suggestion. It is a direct action of your mental force on the mental field of someone else at short range in a personal encounter. And it can be developed through specific exercises that Atkinson will share. The third way is through the adductive power of thought, which he has already introduced. By holding certain thoughts consistently in your mind, you attract to yourself in the great surrounding field of thought the energies, influences, and even the physical circumstances that correspond to what you are thinking. This operates more involuntarily than the first two. Once the pattern of thought is established, it works on your behalf automatically. And the fourth way is the subtlest and perhaps the most profound. It is the power of thought to actually reshape your character. If you lack certain qualities that you know you need, energy, courage, persistence, self-confidence, patience, those qualities can be acquired, not by pretending you have them, and not by some mysterious wish, but by the deliberate, sustained application of the law of mental control. By working on yourself from the inside out, you may have believed your shortcomings were simply part of you, that the leopard cannot change his spots. To you, Atkinson says, this study comes as a mighty ally because the spots can change. The character can be rewritten, and he will show you exactly how in a later lesson. But first, you need the tools. And the most important of those tools begins with understanding the structure of the mind you are working with. Direct psychic influence. This is one of the richest and most immediately practical lessons in the book. Atkinson is about to give you a working model of the human mind, not a scientific model in the academic sense, but a deeply useful psychological map that will help you understand exactly what you're doing whenever you try to influence or persuade anyone. He begins by noting that influencing a person face to face is the most comprehensive form of mental influence. It combines all the other forms, suggestion, thought vibration, and the adductive quality of thought, all operating at once. It is a full orchestra playing together, and it works through three basic channels. First, direct suggestion through the voice, the manner, the appearance, and the eye. This includes not only the deliberate impressions you make, but also the involuntary ones, the ones that flow out of you naturally when you are genuinely engaged and earnest. Second, thought waves directed consciously toward the other person by an act of will. Third, the adductive quality of thought, which operates involuntarily once it has been set in motion by disciplined thinking. This third channel, he says, is the most striking phase of what we call personal magnetism. It is the invisible atmosphere a truly magnetic person carries with them into every encounter. Now, to explain how suggestion actually works, Atkinson introduces a concept he calls the dual mind, the idea that the human mind operates on two distinct levels, which he calls the active function and the passive function. The active function is the critical, analytical, volitional part of the mind. It does the deliberate thinking. It asks questions, evaluates claims, and exercises what we call willpower. It is the guard at the gate, the wide-awake executive of the mind. The passive function is the receptive, automatic, habitual part. It does not initiate. It receives and executes. It is the workhorse of the mind, doing the vast majority of the mental labor without complaint, operating on whatever instructions it has been given. It is credulous, in the best and worst sense of that word. Given proper suggestions, it will accept them and act upon them faithfully. To make this vivid and easy to remember, Atkinson asks you to imagine these two functions as a pair of twins who are partners in a business. The passive brother is a good-natured, easygoing fellow. He is somewhat set in his notions, a little superstitious, and not terribly original in his thinking, but he is tremendously credulous. If you come to him in a firm, confident manner and make a clear request, he will almost certainly grant it. He finds it hard to say no. He prefers to agree and avoid the discomfort of refusal. He is, Atkinson says affectionately, a dead easy sort of fellow. The active brother, on the other hand, is a very different creature entirely. He is suspicious, watchful, sharp, and not inclined to be taken advantage of. He keeps a close eye on his easygoing brother, because he knows very well that the passive brother will agree to almost anything if left unsupervised. He watches every visitor carefully. He evaluates every proposition. He does not let just anyone walk in and start talking to his brother without establishing their credibility first. But here's a key insight that makes this model so useful. The active brother can be managed. He can be interested, entertained, amused. When he is engaged in something that captures his attention, he relaxes his guard. And in those moments, the passive brother draws near and hears what is being said. And the passive brother, once he has heard something, will often think it over long after you have gone. He may even engineer the next encounter himself, having developed a quiet curiosity about you and your ideas. The practical instruction here is stunning in its simplicity. If you want to influence someone, your first task is not to make your argument. Your first task is to win the attention and the relaxed confidence of the active partner. Get him interested. Let him talk. Listen earnestly to what he says. Show genuine engagement with his concerns and ideas. Once his guard comes down, even slightly, your real message has a path to the passive brother, who will receive it far more openly. And suggestions, Atkinson says, gain enormous force through repetition. A man may reject a proposition the first time it is made, but upon hearing the same thing said again and again in the right spirit, he will begin to believe it. The seed gets planted even when no immediate result is visible. Come back again, and you may find that the passive brother has been working on your behalf in the interval. He closes this lesson with the instruction that should perhaps be printed in large letters and kept on every business person's desk. Never take no for an answer. Pursue your purpose in business the way you would pursue the person you love. In courtship, a no or two or a dozen would not stop you. You would adapt your approach. You would find a new angle. You would keep coming back with confidence and with care. Do the same in your professional life, and fortune, which is, as Atkinson says with a smile, feminine in nature, will eventually yield to your earnest pursuit. Confidence, he says at the end, will win the day. The man who believes he can influence others will. The swimming power was always there in the boy. He simply had to believe it and then start swimming. A little worldly wisdom. If the previous lesson gave you the philosophical map, this one gives you the practical street guide. Atkinson now turns to the specific qualities and behaviors that will help you manage your encounters with people in the real daily world. And he approaches this with the brisk, sensible manner of a very experienced coach. He begins with conversation. The first rule, he says, is to find out what interests the person you are speaking with, and then talk about that. Get them started on a favorite topic. Ask the right questions. Create the conditions for them to share what they care about, and then stop talking. Listen. Truly, earnestly listen. He tells the story of Thomas Carlyle, the great Scottish philosopher and writer, who was famously difficult to engage in conversation. A visitor once came to call on Carlyle, and, being a skilled listener and a student of human nature, managed to get him started on a subject he cared about deeply. Carlyle then talked for over 3 hours without giving the visitor a single chance to get a word in edgeways. When the caller finally rose to leave, Carlyle accompanied him to the door in a surprisingly warm and cheerful mood and bade him goodbye, saying, "Come again, friend. We have had a most delightful conversation. You see the point? The visitor said almost nothing. Carlyle did all the talking. And yet Carlyle experienced the encounter as delightful, because the most magnetic thing you can do for another human being is to give them your genuine, earnest, focused attention while they speak. Learn this art. Atkinson says, cultivate it. It is one of the most valuable accomplishments a person can possess. Many men and women have risen to positions of great influence simply by being excellent listeners. He cautions you, though, about one danger in this approach. While you are listening, while you are giving the other person your attention, you must keep yourself positive. Do not fall so deeply under the spell of their words and personality that their thoughts begin to impress themselves on your passive mind. Stay alert. Stay yourself. You are there to understand them, not to be absorbed by them. Now, he turns to appearance. And here Atkinson is pleasantly direct. Avoid the two extremes. He says, do not be flashy. Do not be dowdy. Keep to the middle road. Your clothing should be simple, neat, and clean. Pay particular attention to your hat and your shoes, because these are among the first things a perceptive person notices, and a shabby hat or muddy shoes will undermine even a fine suit of clothes. Always wear clean linen. Avoid strong perfumes. And above all, attend to personal cleanliness, because that is a prerequisite most people have in common, regardless of their other standards. Your manner, he continues, should be pleasant and cheerful without being frivolous. A certain degree of reserve is desirable. Temper should be firmly under control at all times, because anger is a sign of weakness, not strength. The angry man always loses ground, while the calm man holds his. And you should be absolutely fearless, both physically and morally. Moral fearlessness, he notes, is the rarer of the two. There should be self-respect in your manner, combined with a genuine sensitivity to the feelings of others. If you carry in your mind the thought, I act toward you as I would like you to act toward me, and let that thought take form in your behavior, you will acquire the quality of consideration that opens doors and builds lasting connections. Be earnest when you talk. Earnestness holds attention. It gives force to your suggestions, and it lends power to your thought vibrations, because earnestness is itself a kind of focused energy. Cultivate a firm handshake. Nobody, Atkinson says with wry humor, enjoys having a limp, damp hand thrust at them. Shake hands as if you mean it. And when you do, look the person squarely in the eye. About the voice, cultivate a tone that is neither mumbling nor boisterous. An excellent practical rule is to pitch your voice to the tone of the person you are speaking with one exception. If they raise their voice, do not raise yours. Keep it steady and subdued. You will find, almost without fail, that the other person's voice will gradually drop to match yours. As their voice drops, their agitation drops with it, and you will have managed the situation with grace and without conflict. He closes this lesson with genuine encouragement. Every single quality he has described, the listening skill, the manner, the tone of voice, the fearlessness, the earnestness, every one of them can be acquired by anyone willing to work for them. They are not gifts of birth. They are habits of mind. And the lesson on character building, which is coming, will show you exactly how to build them. The power of the eye, of all the channels through which personal influence flows. Atkinson now turns to what he considers the most potent of all, the human eye. This is not a poetic statement. He means it practically and literally. The eye, when it has been trained and is being used with conscious intention, is one of the most powerful instruments of personal influence known. It does two things simultaneously. It holds the attention of the person you are speaking with, keeping the active partner so engaged that his guard begins to relax. And it also acts as a direct transmitter of mental vibrations, sending your thought force straight to the mind of the other person at short range. Atkinson reminds you of something you already know from experience. You have met people whose steady gaze was almost unbearable. People who seemed to look right through you. People in whose presence you felt somehow transparent, as though they could see your thoughts as easily as your face. This is not an accident of facial structure. It is a result of trained mental force expressing itself through the eye, and it can be developed. In this lesson, Atkinson assumes that you are building toward the exercises he will give in the next chapter, and he focuses on how the trained eye should be used in practice. He calls what you are developing the magnetic gaze. When you begin an interview or a conversation, look the other person squarely in the eye from the very first moment, not with a staring, aggressive look, not the look of a cad, but with a firm, steady, calm gaze that communicates with power and concentrated attention. During the conversation, you may look away naturally, but whenever you make a request, put forward a proposition, or wish to make a strong impression, bring your gaze back to their eyes with full steadiness and hold it there. At that moment, he says, you must hold their attention at all hazards. If the other person looks away from you while you are making your strongest point, the connection is broken. The active partner regains his full alertness. The passive brother slips back behind the door, and you lose the psychological moment. If they're avoiding your gaze, Atkinson gives a clever technique. Look away yourself for a moment, but keep watching them from the corner of your eye. The moment their eyes turn toward your face to check where you are looking, snap your own gaze back to meet theirs, and hold it. That is a powerful moment. The person has been caught off guard, and their guard is momentarily down. That is exactly when you deliver your clearest, most confident suggestion. Another technique. Have something physical to show them. A sample, a picture, any relevant object. Show it to them and say nothing. Watch what happens. Almost without exception, after looking at the object, they will raise their eyes to yours. Be ready. Meet that look immediately with your full magnetic gaze, and follow with strong, confident suggestion. He also turns the lens around and tells you how to protect yourself. If someone is using this kind of influence on you, whether they know it or not, your defense is the positive mental attitude. Assert your own sense of self quietly and firmly. Do not allow yourself to remain under an unbroken gaze. Look away reflectively, as though you are carefully considering every word. When someone makes you a proposition, and you feel the pressure of their suggestion bearing down on you, take your eyes away for a moment before you respond. Regain your center, and if your answer is no, look them directly and calmly in the eye and say so. When in doubt, Atkinson advises, say no. A confident no is far stronger than a hesitant yes. The ability to give a suggestion properly is, in itself, an art. You should deliver your suggestions in an earnest, firm, positive manner. Your voice should convey the expectation that your words will be acted upon. Your mind should carry the belief that they will be. 2 words sum up a quality you are trying to embody in these moments. Confident earnestness. If you can hold that combination in your mind and feel it in your body, you will be able to sense what it feels like to give a suggestion in the proper way. The magnetic gaze. Now comes the practice itself. Atkinson gives you 5 specific exercises for developing what he calls a magnetic gaze, and he asks you to follow them faithfully, because this is not a lesson you read and understand. It is a lesson you do over days and weeks until the results show up in your life without you even thinking about it. He defines a magnetic gaze precisely. It is the expression of a strong mental demand by means of an eye whose nerves and muscles have been trained for work, and which is thereby enabled to maintain a firm, steady, positive gaze. The key phrase is that it is the expression of a mental demand. The eye is the instrument. The mind is the player. And when both have been developed together, the result is a gaze that very few people can comfortably withstand. The first exercise is a foundation. Take a piece of plain white paper and draw a circle on it roughly the size of a silver coin. Then fill it in with black ink so that it forms a clear, solid spot on the white background. Pin this paper to the wall at eye level. Sit in a chair in the middle of the room, directly facing the paper. Fix your eyes steadily on the black spot and hold your gaze for 1 minute without blinking. Rest. Then do it again. 5 repetitions. Then shift the paper 3 feet to the right of its original position and practice gazing at the spot while keeping your head straight and moving only your eyes. Then 3 feet to the left. Continue this exercise for 3 days. Then increase the time to 2 minutes. Increase by 1 minute every 3 days until you can hold the gaze for 15 minutes. Atkinson says that some people have extended this practice to 30 minutes, but he does not recommend going beyond 15. The man who can hold a steady gaze for 15 minutes, he says, can direct as powerful a gaze as the man who reaches 30. You do not need more time. You need quality of attention. The second exercise uses a mirror. Stand before your reflection and gaze steadily into the reflection of your own eyes. Follow the same time progression as the first exercise. This does several things at once. It accustoms you to meeting the gaze of another pair of eyes without flinching or looking away. It allows you to observe your own expression as the magnetic quality develops. And it trains you to be comfortable under scrutiny, which is itself a form of confidence. The third exercise develops the muscles and nerves of the eye by moving your head in a slow circle while keeping your gaze fixed on the spot. As your head moves, your eyes must compensate to stay locked on target. This creates a rotational exercise of muscles around the eye, strengthening them in a way that simple forward gazing does not. The fourth exercise works differently. Stand with your back against the wall and face the opposite wall. Then shift your gaze rapidly from one point to another, right, left, up, down, diagonally, in circles. As soon as your eyes begin to feel tired, stop the motion and fix your gaze on a single point, which will rest the eyes after all that movement. This develops both strength and flexibility in the eye muscles. The fifth exercise, and perhaps the most exciting one, is practice on real people. Persuade a willing friend to sit across from you and simply look at you for as long as they can, while you hold your steady, calm gaze on their eyes. You will find, after a period of consistent practice, that you tire them out quite quickly, and as they begin to yield, they will enter what Atkinson describes as an almost hypnotic condition, a state of heightened receptivity and calm. He also notes that animals respond clearly to this kind of gaze. Dogs, cats, and other animals will often move away or turn their heads to escape a steady, concentrated human gaze. This, he says, is confirmation that something real is happening, something that goes beyond mere social behavior. He closes with a very important piece of advice that applies not just to the eye exercises, but to all of the practices in this book. Keep your own secrets. Do not go around telling people that you are practicing personal magnetism. Do not demonstrate your exercises as entertainment. Do not speak of your developing powers at dinner parties. Do nothing to make people suspicious or self-conscious around you. Let your force manifest itself through results, through the quality of your connections, through the growing evidence that your presence has an effect on people. A man who quietly develops a power and lets it speak through his life is 10 times more effective than one who announces it and invites skepticism. Develop gradually, follow nature's pace, and trust the process. Before we continue to the next chapter, if you're finding this narration valuable, I would love for you to subscribe to this channel. There's so much more to come, more classic wisdom literature, more forgotten masterworks of the mind, brought to life in this format for you to listen and absorb. Hit the subscribe button now. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload, and let us keep this journey going together. Now, back to Atkinson, because he is about to introduce something he considers the deepest and most essential concept in the entire course, the Volek force. In this lesson, Atkinson draws a careful distinction that will matter a great deal as you continue through the rest of the book. He has already introduced the adductive quality of thought. The way that thought, once set in motion, attracts similar thought back to you from the surrounding field, almost automatically without continuous conscious effort. He has spoken of suggestion and the magnetic gaze. But now he introduces something different, something he believes is even more fundamental. He calls it volation, and the force it generates he calls the Volek force. Atkinson explains that he has not found any existing term that precisely captures what he means. So he invents one, volation, from the Latin word for will, and Volek, meaning of the will. What he is describing is a conscious exercise of willpower that generates thought vibrations and directs them toward a specific object or person, unlike the adductive quality, which works automatically once the mental pattern is established. Volation requires an active effort. When you stop willing, the vibrations stop. It is a directed, purposeful act of mental force. This is what Napoleon had. Not luck, not charisma in the shallow sense, not even extraordinary intelligence. Napoleon had Volek force developed to an extraordinary degree, and he wielded it, often unconsciously, over millions of people. His will was imposed upon armies, on generals, on governments. From remarks recorded by people who knew him, Atkinson believes Napoleon had at least a dim awareness of the force he was commanding. He acted in accordance with it for a long time, and then he began to misuse it. He lost sight of the source of his strength. He violated the laws that governed it, and he fell. This observation is important and will recur throughout the book. These forces are governed by laws, and those laws cannot be violated indefinitely without consequence. To understand volation, Atkinson says you must understand the nature of the will. And to understand the will, you must first understand what you actually are. What is the real man? What is the genuine self? He offers 3 perspectives. The first is a purely materialistic view, which sees the ego, the I of the self, as nothing more than the physical body. Atkinson treats this view with respect, but considers it incomplete. The second perspective sees the self as a mental creature inhabiting the body and centered in the brain. This is closer, but it is still only half the truth. And the third perspective, the one Atkinson is guiding you toward, recognizes that there's a higher self in man, something that stands above both body and mind, and of which both body and mind are instruments. He calls this the I am. And he invites you to do something right now. Put this book down for a moment. Relax every muscle in your body. Let your mind settle into stillness. and hold the two words, I am, quietly in your awareness, not as a thought to be analyzed, as a felt sense, a recognition. See what you notice. If you do this with full attention, Atkinson says you will perceive a glimmer of the presence of the real self, something beneath and behind your thoughts and feelings, something that is aware of your thoughts and feelings, but is not identical to them, something that endures when everything else shifts. When your mind begins to recognize this deeper self, when the I am stops being a concept and becomes an experience, something shifts. You begin to feel a new sense of power, not the power of ego or aggression, but the steady, calm, grounded sense of power that comes from knowing what you really are. And it is from that place of recognition that true volation becomes possible, because the will is not something you build or manufacture. The will is already fully present in you. What needs developing is the mind's capacity to recognize and align with it, to raise the trolley pole to wire, as Atkinson puts it in one of his most memorable images, so that the current can flow. When your mind fully connects with the I am, the force that flows through your directed thought is something entirely different from ordinary wishful thinking. It becomes a genuine act of will. And acts of genuine will have effects in the world that most people never experience, because most people never learn to make the connection. He then distinguishes between two kinds of thinking: passive mentation, which is a kind of thinking that thinks itself, the automatic, habitual, instinctive mental activity that requires no real volitional effort, and active mentation, which is produced by a genuine engagement of the will with the mind. Every time you think along the lines of active mentation, your thoughts are stronger, more forceful, more penetrating. And of course the reverse is also true. The man who understands the law of mental control and who learns to think primarily in the mode of active mentation is placed at an immense advantage over his brother, who drifts along on the current of passive mental habit. The next lesson, Atkinson promises, will teach you how to exercise volation directly, how to will something, not through clenching your fists and frowning, but through the calm, earnest, expectant demand that produces real results. Direct volation. Now we arrive at the application. Atkinson has built the theory carefully, lesson by lesson. Now he asks you to try it. He begins with a reminder about what volation actually measures. The degree to which a man exerts influence over other men is, broadly speaking, in exact proportion to his measure of volation. Look at any genuine leader people, and you will find this force present, usually without their being able to explain it. Napoleon, again, is a supreme historical example. But you know people like this in ordinary life. People whose presence changes a room. People whose confidence seems to project outward and affect everyone around them. They have developed volation, consciously or not. Many such people, Atkinson says, will freely admit that they cannot explain their power. They simply know they have it, and they act from it. The student who reads this book has an advantage over these naturally powerful people, because you are learning the laws consciously. You can work with them deliberately. You can develop what they stumbled into. He reiterates the prime requisite, recognition of the I am. The more complete that recognition, the greater the volic force at your command. You cannot fully explain this in advance. You must feel your way toward it through practice. But there's a felt quality to it that you will recognize immediately when you touch it. A sense that your body is, as Atkinson puts it, like a suit of clothes, something you are wearing temporarily but are not identical to. A sense that even your mind is not the final you, but only the instrument through which you express yourself. And behind all of that, the steady, undisturbed, powerful awareness of I am, when you speak or act or direct your thought from that place of recognition. Even briefly, you will notice the difference immediately. Other people will notice it too, even if they cannot say why. In a personal interview, exercise and volation is not a matter of dramatic effort. You do not frown or strain or clench anything. You simply hold a calm, earnest, expectant mental demand toward the other person. You expect that they will respond as you intend. You hold that expectation with confidence, not anxiety. You believe it in the quiet, certain way that a good swimmer believes the water will hold them. The earnest expectation is the secret. Half-hearted expectation produces half-hearted results. Calm, confident expectation produces something that feels to both you and the other person almost like the natural unfolding of events. And then Atkinson gives you exercises, simple ones to start. Exercises you can try today. The first, walk behind someone on the street, keeping 6 to 10 feet of distance between you. Fix a firm, steady gaze on the back of their neck, just at the base of the brain. While gazing at that point, will inwardly that the person will turn their head and look around in your direction. Hold the intention. Do not force it. Simply expect it. A little practice. And you will begin to be surprised at how often people comply with this quiet mental request. Women, he notes, tend to be more responsive to this than men. The second, in a church, a theater, a concert hall, try the same thing with someone seated ahead of you. Focus the gaze on the same point at the base of their skull. You will notice the person becoming slightly restless, shifting in their seat, and eventually half turning to glance in your direction. And the closer your personal connection to that individual, the faster and more clearly the response will manifest. The third, try influencing someone across a streetcar without looking directly at them. Watch them from your peripheral vision. Direct a strong, silent mental demand toward them and see how quickly they glance your way. Often the glance is sudden and sharp, as though they felt a hand on their shoulder. The fourth exercise is particularly interesting. When someone is speaking and they hesitate for a word, fix a quick mental suggestion of a particular word on them. Many times they will immediately say the word you were thinking. The suggestion has to be appropriate to the context, or their active mind will override it. But when it fits, the passive mind picks it up and delivers it to their lips before the active partner has even noticed. The fifth, experiment with influencing the direction of someone's movement. Walking behind someone on the street, will them to turn right or left as they pass another person. Or approaching someone face to face, keep walking straight and will them to step aside in the direction you choose. These are small experiments, but they begin to give you a felt sense of the force. They build your confidence. And confidence, as Atkinson keeps reminding you, is itself one of the primary generators of the force. He closes this lesson with a firm ethical warning that he will return to in different forms throughout the book. Do not use these powers to harm anyone. Do not use them for swindling, manipulation, or working evil of any kind. Not only because it is morally wrong, but because the occult laws of cause and effect are precise and impartial. What you send out, you will receive back amplified. The man who uses this force for evil will eventually suffer in exact proportion to the harm he causes. This is not a threat from the outside. It is built into the nature of the force itself. Use it freely and generously in the service of your legitimate interests. Influence people to do business with you, to hear your ideas, to cooperate with your plans. Provided you treat them fairly, you are doing nothing wrong. You are simply using the full range of your natural capacities. Telepathic volation. In this lesson, Atkinson extends the reach of volation beyond the room you are standing in. What happens when the person you wish to influence is not present? What if they are across town or across the country? Can thought force reach them? His answer is yes, and he calls this telepathic volation. He does not spend time arguing for the existence of telepathy. By his time, he says, the public has already largely accepted thought transference as an established fact, just as readily as they accepted the X-ray or wireless telegraphy. And indeed, the phenomenon has been observed and reported so consistently across so many cultures and circumstances that attempting to deny it entirely requires a more rigorous skepticism than most people actually maintain. What he wants to give you is not proof, but a practical working method. He begins with an image that is both poetic and precise. Ordinary thought sends out vibrations in all directions, like ripples on a pond when you drop a stone into still water. They move outward in expanding circles, gradually losing force as they spread. A little of that energy may reach the person you are thinking about, but only a little. Telepathic volation, by contrast, is like throwing a stone not downward into the water, but along the surface in a straight line. The ripples travel in the direction the stone travels. The energy is concentrated, directed, focused. As Atkinson puts it, compared to ordinary undirected thought, it is as a rifle ball to a load of mustard seed shot. The rifle ball is vastly more effective, provided you aim straight. The process he describes is one that many people in various traditions have encountered under different names. But Atkinson is unusually practical and specific about how to do it. First, find a quiet place where you will not be disturbed. Lie down or sit in an easy chair. Relax completely. Let every muscle go. Let your body become, as he says, as limp as a damp cloth. Shut out fear thoughts. Shut out distracting images. Reach a state of calm, passive, inward focused stillness. From that state, bring the image of the other person clearly into your mind. If you know them well, see their face, their mannerisms, their presence. If you have never met them, hold a general mental figure without distinct features. Hold that image gently but steadily. After a few moments of this, Atkinson says you will begin to notice that the mental picture starts to feel more real. You will sense, in some quiet way, that you are in actual contact with the other person, that you have reached them across the distance. When that impression arrives, let your mind begin to shape the thought of what you wish. Picture the person as interested in you, as favorable toward your plans, as moving in the direction of cooperation and goodwill. Do not force it. The main image must always be the person themselves, held with steady attention. The wishful thoughts are secondary, traveling along the line of connection that your focused attention has opened. The clearest sign that you have achieved genuine contact, he says, is when you get the impression of looking through a long tube, roughly a foot in diameter, with yourself at one end and the other person at the other end. This is what he calls a psychic tube. It is not something you invent. It arrives when concentration has achieved its full depth. When it appears, even faintly, you will know that the connection is real and that your thought is reaching its destination with unusual force. He then turns again to self-protection. The same thought vibrations you are learning to send Other people send all the time to you, mostly without knowing it. The opinions you think are entirely your own may in many cases be the accumulated thought waves of the people around you, absorbed without your awareness. People change their political and religious views simply by moving to a new community, not because of new arguments, but because of the saturation effect of surrounding thought field. The protection against this is the positive mental attitude. Recognize the I am. Hold the awareness of your real self. That recognition creates what Atkinson calls a thought aura around you, a field of clarity and self-possession that deflects outside vibrations without effort. When you hold it, you can think without the unconscious influence of other people's mental weather. Your decisions become genuinely yours. And when you have used telepathic volation before an in-person meeting, when you finally come face to face with the person you've been sending thought toward, you will notice something remarkable. They will seem to know you better than the circumstances warrant. They will be warmer. They will be more open. They will feel, without understanding why, as though they have known you for years. The ice has been melted before you walked in the room. A repeated exercise of telepathic volation before any important encounter, Atkinson says, leaves matters so significantly that what might have been a difficult or uncertain meeting becomes almost effortless. The adductive quality of thought. Now Atkinson comes to what he considers the most expansive and wonder-inducing lesson of the entire course. He has mentioned the adductive quality of thought throughout, in passing, as one of the 3 pillars of influence. Now he turns to face it directly. He opens by citing Prentice Mulford, the writer to whom he dedicates this entire book, and whose 3-word statement Atkinson considers one of the most compressed and profound philosophical declarations ever made. Thoughts are things, not merely metaphorically, not as poetic language. Literally, thought, Atkinson argues, is a real substance. It is the finest form of matter or the grossest form of spirit. You may call it either, because ultimately the distinction collapses. There is one substance in all of nature, manifesting in forms of varying density and refinement, from the most solid physical matter up through liquids, gases, finer vapors, heat, light, electricity, and thought, which is finest of all. When you think, you send out vibrations of a fine, ethereal substance that is as real as air, as real as heat, as real as the force of a great magnet. You cannot see it. You cannot taste or smell it, but you can feel it. Many people have testified to feeling the thought vibrations of others, and many more have felt them without recognizing what they were. Atkinson cites 2 scientific authorities of his time, Professor Alicia Gray and M. Williams, to suggest that the spectrum of vibration extends far beyond what our senses can currently detect. Between the slowest vibrations we perceive as sound and the fastest we perceive as light, there's an enormous silent range, and there is no good reason to suppose that nothing is happening in that range. These citations are offered as food for thought, not as proof, but the food is rich. Now to the heart of the lesson. Thought vibrations of similar character attract one another. This is the adductive quality. Thought attracts like thought, the way water seeks its own level, the way birds of feather flock together. Fear and worry thoughts attract other fear and worry thoughts. They combine, they amplify, and you find yourself burdened not only by your own anxiety, but by the accumulated anxiety of the entire field of fearful thoughts surrounding you. The longer you persist in that direction, the heavier the weight becomes. But the reverse is equally true and equally powerful. Bright, cheerful, confident, I can will thoughts attract their own kind as well. They draw toward you the courageous, hopeful, energetic mental currents of all those around you who carry similar thought. You feel lifted. You feel supported. And not only that, the people who carry those energies begin to be drawn toward you in the physical world as well. They find you interesting. They want to be around you. They offer help without knowing quite why. Atkinson paints the picture vividly. If thoughts had color, he says, the fear and worry thoughts will look like heavy, dark, murky clouds hanging low to ground, dense and suffocating. And the bright, confident, Icon thoughts would look like light, fleecy clouds sailing swiftly upward, mingling with others of their kind in the clean air high above. You get to choose which clouds you generate every single day. He then points to something subtle but important. Your thought waves do not simply leave you and disappear into the world. They retain a connection to you. They circle back. They continue to influence you even as they go out and influence others. You cannot easily escape the products of your own mental life. You cannot send out hate thoughts and then wonder why the world feels hateful. You cannot project defeat and confusion and then be puzzled when circumstances seem to conspire against you. The world you experience is, to a remarkable degree, a reflection of the dominant quality of thought you have been broadcasting. This is the ancient principle behind the proverb. Curses, like chickens, come home to roost. It is not superstition. It is a mechanical operation of the adductive law. What you send returns. With interest, anger thoughts arouse anger in the person you direct them at, and they send anger back. Jealousy calls forth jealousy. Hate draws hate, but kindness draws kindness. Generosity draws generosity. Confidence draws confidence. Courage draws courage. Atkinson now arrives at perhaps the boldest and most practically useful claim in the entire book. He says that all successful men owe their greatness to their earnest, forceful, concentrated thought. They fixed their minds upon a line of thought. They brought the recognition of the I am to bear upon it. They let that thought mold their characters. And they moved straight toward their aim without allowing discouragement, temptation, or the doubt of others to pull them off course. Others aimed for the same mark and failed, not because they lacked talent or opportunity, but because they failed to hold the thought. They became discouraged. They allowed themselves to be coaxed away from their ideal. They let the I cannot thoughts creep back in and do their destructive work. The three absolute requisites for following a thought ideal through completion are these. First, an overpowering desire, not a mild wish, not a passing fancy, a consuming, burning, unmistakable desire that refuses to be forgotten. Second, a strong belief in your ability to accomplish what you desire, not a tentative, apologetic half-faith, a genuine, grounded conviction that it is possible and that you can do it. Third, an invincible determination to win, not a timid I will try, a settled, immovable I will. These three qualities together, consistently held, will unfailingly produce results. They mold the character. They sharpen the powers of influence. And they generate thought waves of such quality and force that they attract toward you from the surrounding field exactly the help, the opportunities, the people, and the circumstances you need. Think I cannot, and you project vibrations that cause others to feel the same about you. You repel the very assistance you are seeking. Think I can and I will, and those vibrations go out dancing and charged with energy, and strong men feel a fellow feeling toward you, and weaker men feel your strength and are drawn to it. He closes this lesson with a remarkable statement that has the quality of a universal law. Anything is yours if you only want it hard enough, not as an excuse for passivity, not as a license for selfishness, but as a simple, observable truth that desire, belief, and determination, combined and sustained, are the generating engine of every human achievement worth speaking of. Try it, he says. Try it in earnest, and you will know it is true from your own experience. Character building by mental control. Here Atkinson addresses the objection that has probably been forming in the minds of many readers since the very first lesson. Yes, all of this sounds wonderful, they might say, and I can see how it would work for someone who already has the necessary qualities. But what about me? I know what I am missing. I know I lack energy or confidence or persistence or courage, and those things feel like they are simply part of me. They feel fixed, built in, unchangeable. This belief, Atkinson says with great firmness, is the greatest mistake a person can make, and it is itself a species of fear thought. Man can make of himself practically what he will. That is not an inspirational slogan. It is an observed, demonstrable fact. And the method by which it is accomplished is the law of mental control applied to character itself. Every characteristic you have, desirable or not, is the result of a habit of thought. You were not born timid in any permanent sense. You were not born lazy or fearful or lacking in confidence. You may have inherited impulses that made certain habits easier to form than others, but the character is a result of acquired habits of thought. The patterns that feel most natural to you are simply the ones you have repeated most often, until they became grooves in which your mental activity flows automatically. Grooves can be changed. New paths can be made through the woods. It is not easy, but Atkinson says he has something to offer that makes it far less difficult than it would be through sheer willpower alone. He identifies 4 methods of changing thought habits and building new ones. The first is brute force of will, simply commanding the passive mind to drop the old habit and adopt a new one. This is magnificent when it works, but it is brutally difficult, and most people who try it fail and end up more discouraged than before. The will is strong enough, but the mind needs a gentler form of persuasion. The second method is hypnotic suggestion from a skilled, qualified operator. This can produce excellent results when the operator genuinely understands their work. The suggestion plants new seeds in the passive mind while the active partner is temporarily set aside. The results can be lasting and significant, but Atkinson cautions you to be selective about who you trust with this kind of access to your inner self. The third method is autosuggestion. You become your own hypnotist. You give the passive mind repeated, earnest, confident suggestions of the new quality you wish to develop. You do this not tentatively, but with the same tone you would use if you were genuinely certain of what you were saying. The passive mind, being the credulous and accommodating partner it is, will eventually accept these suggestions as true. It will begin to act on them, and when it acts on them, even imperfectly, it confirms them further. The fourth method is what Atkinson calls thought absorption. This is perhaps the most powerful and the most pleasant of all 4, and it works like this. You place yourself in a state of deep physical and mental relaxation. You find a quiet place. You lie down or sit in an easy chair. You let every muscle go completely limp. You breathe slowly and deeply. You withdraw your attention from the outer world and turn it entirely inward. You shut the active mind down. Gently, the way you might persuade a watchful guardian to take a rest. And then, in that receptive, open, passive state, you hold before the mind a single word, a word that expresses a quality you want to develop. Fearless, confident, energetic, persistent, courageous, whatever it is. You let that word sink into your awareness like a die pressing into warm wax. You feel the shape of it. You think about what it means. You think about what a person who possesses that quality looks like, acts like, feels like, and then you do something that sounds almost childishly simple, but is in fact one of the most effective psychological techniques ever described. You imagine yourself as that person. You create in your mind a vivid daydream in which you are fearless or confident or energetic, living out scenes and situations where you express that quality naturally and fully. You see yourself responding to difficult situations from that new quality. You let the imagination run. You give it full scope, and you always end the daydream from a position of success. And I am strength. Atkinson is insistent that this combination of auto-suggestion and thought absorption is the ideal treatment for character building, not because it is dramatic or difficult, but because it works with the natural tendencies of the passive mind rather than against them. The passive mind is already accustomed to accepting the pictures that imagination presents to it and treating them as reality. In sleep, it does this automatically. In daydream, it does it willingly. All you are doing is directing that natural process toward the qualities you consciously choose to develop. He uses the fear habit as his main illustration because he considers it the most damaging of all thought habits and the most common. Fear and its oldest child, worry, he says, are at the bottom of more misery, more unhappiness, and more failure than any other single factor in human life. The man who has torn out the fear thought by the roots has advanced further toward freedom than he can yet realize. Most of the things we fear, the old wisdom says, never actually happen, and the few that do happen can be faced far more effectively without the corrosive energy drain of prior worry than with it. He gives practical exercises for the thought absorption process, walking you through each step with the precision of a skilled instructor. Find your quiet place. Get comfortable. Relax completely from head to foot. Breathe deeply. Turn your attention inward. Hold the word. Think the meaning. Picture yourself. Always show yourself succeeding in the scenes you generate. Conclude with the recognition of I am. Repeat this as often as possible. Before sleep is particularly effective because the impression you carry into sleep will continue to do its work even as you rest. And you will not find that it keeps you awake. You will find, rather, that it draws you naturally and pleasantly towards sleep. The same process applies to every quality you wish to develop, not just fearlessness. Energy, ambition, patience, persistence, confidence, consideration for others. Every single one of them can be seeded and cultivated through this method. Select a word that names a quality opposite to your current weakness and work with it consistently. Do not be discouraged by early results that seem small or uncertain. The mind, like the muscle, develops through repeated use. You did not build your current habits in a day, and you will not replace them in a day, but you will feel the difference from the very first serious attempt. And within a month of consistent practice, you will not recognize the person you used to be. Atkinson closes this lesson with a statement so direct it deserves to be read slowly. You've been given the means of remedying your defects. If you do not avail yourself of its benefits, it is simply because you do not want to. If you have desire strong within you, you will do it. You are your own master. Make of yourself what you will. The art of concentering. Everything that has come before in this book, the suggestion, the magnetic gaze, the volic force, the telepathic volation, the adductive quality, the character building exercises, all of it depends upon one underlying skill. And Atkinson now names that skill directly. He calls it concentering. And he chooses this word deliberately over the more common word concentration, because he wants to give a precise and vivid meaning. Concenter means to bring to a common center, to focus. The very structure of the word concenter is itself the definition, to bring everything to a point. The exoteric or outward meaning of concentering is this: the ability to fix the mind upon one particular thought or action and hold it there, excluding all other thoughts and impressions for as long as needed. This is a form that has immediate practical value in everyday life, in business, in the exercises of this course. The esoteric or inner meaning goes deeper. The concentering of the mind upon the ego itself, the I am, shutting out all awareness of material self and the grosser activities of the personality, and resting in the pure awareness of the higher self. This is a form that the mystics and the deeper students pursue. Atkinson mentions it, gives you a glimpse of it, and then returns to the practical side, which is the purpose of this work. He begins by making a case that concentering is the single most underutilized skill in ordinary human life. Think about the painter who said he mixed brains into his paint. Think about the miner who put a little brains into his pick. The difference between excellent work and mediocre work, between the man who advances and the man who stagnates, is almost entirely a matter of the degree of concentrated thought brought to the task at hand. The man who takes genuine interest in his work, who finds intellectual pleasure in each daily task, is not just a happier man. He is a more effective man. He produces better results. He makes himself valuable. The man who watches the clock, who leaves his pick hanging in the air the moment the whistle blows, is a machine in human form. He will never amount to much unless he changes his relationship to his work. Every man who has arrived has developed the art of concentering, whether he knows it or not. And therefore, every man who develops the art of concentering will arrive. The logic is direct. If you do the best possible work, you will find a market for your services. And the only way to consistently do your best work is to bring the focused power of concentrated attention to whatever you are doing. Atkinson is enthusiastic on this point to the point of impatience. He addresses the reader almost directly, telling him to stop mooning about, to stop complaining about the oppression of capital, to stop dreaming of some future ease. Get down to business. He says, do the work, concentrate on it, and watch what happens. He also points out something that people rarely consider. Concentering is one of the most effective remedies for low spirits. The blues, discouragement, fear, worry. These conditions thrive when the mind is allowed to drift in their direction without resistance. But the man who has learned to concentrate can, that will shut off the unpleasant thought and fix his attention on something brighter. You might think you cannot do this. You can. Thousands of people have discovered this, and every one of them will tell you that life looks entirely different from the other side of that practice. He then gives you a small test to show you where your concentering currently stands. Pick up a pencil, sharpen it carefully, and while you are sharpening it, try to keep your entire attention on that pencil and nothing else. Not on what you're going to do later. Not on the conversation you had this morning. Not on the sound coming from the next room. just the pencil, the feel of it, the angle of the blade, the quality of the point forming under your hands. How did you do? If you are honest, probably not well. The mind slipped away repeatedly, and you had to pull it back. That is perfectly normal. It is also exactly the problem, and it is exactly what the concentering exercises are designed to fix. The analogy that Atkinson offers for what concentering does to mental force is the sunlight through a magnifying glass. Diffuse sunlight falling on a piece of paper does nothing, but focus that same sunlight through a lens to a single bright point, and the paper catches fire. The same energy, completely different result. Focus is everything. And when the thought force is concentrated in this way, when your full attention is brought to bear on an object, a person, a goal, a suggestion, the intensity of the effect is multiplied beyond what scattered attention can ever achieve. Every single exercise in this book works better when performed with concentrated attention. The magnetic gaze requires it. Volation requires it. Thought absorption requires it. They are all at bottom forms of concentering applied to specific purposes. He closes this lesson with a thought about mental rest that is counterintuitive but true. Concentering is not only a force for effort, it is also a mechanism for genuine rest. When one set of brain cells has been exhausted by a long effort in a particular direction, the way to rest them is not to let the mind drift. Drifting allows those tired cells to keep vibrating with the residue of their recent activity. The true rest comes from concentrating on something entirely different, which engages a fresh set of cells and allows the exhausted ones to finally go quiet. You have experienced this. You've been mentally exhausted after a hard day, picked up a novel you loved, become completely absorbed in it, and emerge an hour or two later feeling refreshed. That is concentering at work as a restorative, the ability to switch your attention completely, to put one line of thought down and pick up another as cleanly as changing a coat, is one of the most practically useful skills a human mind can develop. The practice of concentering. Now Atkinson gives you the specific exercises. This is the workout regimen for the faculty of attention, and as with any physical training, it begins with basics that seem almost insultingly simple and become progressively more demanding as you build the underlying capacity. He organizes the exercises into 3 groups labeled A, B, and C. Each group trains a different aspect of the concentering faculty. Group A is about bringing the body under the control of the mind. This might surprise you. Why would physical stillness have anything to do with mental concentration? Because Atkinson explains the body and the mind are intimately connected. A body that is twitching, fidgeting, swinging its leg, tapping its fingers, or shifting constantly in its seat is a body that is pulling the attention away from its chosen focus with every movement. To concentrate the mind, you must first quiet the body. The first exercise of Group A is simply this. Sit still, not rigidly, not tensely. Relax completely, with no strain anywhere, and remain perfectly quiescent for 5 minutes. No movement, no fidgeting, no adjustment, just still. Try this before you dismiss it. For most people, 5 minutes of genuine stillness is more difficult than it sounds. The body wants to move. An itch appears here, a twitch there. The foot wants to tap. The hands want to do something. Your job is to notice all of this and allow none of it. Simply sit, fully relaxed and still. Begin with 5 minutes. When you can do that with ease, extend to 10, then to 15. This practice alone faithfully done, develops a quality of calm self-possession that will be felt in everything you do. The second exercise of group A adds an arm extension. Sit erect, head up, chin forward, shoulders back. Raise one arm to shoulder height, pointing to side. Turn your head and fix your gaze on your hand. Hold the arm perfectly steady for 1 minute. The palm faces downward, which is a position of least strain. By watching the tips of your fingers with your eyes, you will be able to see any trembling or wavering and correct for it. Begin at 1 minute. Increase to 5. Alternate arms. The third exercise adds a full wine glass of water held by the fingertips, arm extended in front of you. The liquid in the glass makes every tremor of the arm visible. Your goal is to hold the glass extended for 5 minutes without a visible ripple on the surface of the water. This is a more demanding test of muscular steadiness, and it develops the precise, controlled quietness of the body that allows the mind to operate without interruption. The fourth element of Group A is not an exercise, but a set of daily habits to cultivate. Stop tapping the table or chair with your fingers. Stop swinging your foot. Stop rocking in your chair. Stop biting your nails or chewing your lips while thinking. Stop blinking unnecessarily. Stop twitching or jerking any part of your body. Get rid of every nervous habit that has become second nature to you. When a door slams or something drops suddenly, practice remaining unmoved. Train yourself to bear sudden noises without a startled reaction. Keep yourself, as Atkinson says, well in hand. These suggestions might seem minor, even trivial, but every nervous habit is a leak in the vessel that should be holding your concentrated force. Plug the leaks, and you will be surprised at the power that begins to accumulate. Group B trains the voluntary muscular movements, bringing them under the direct control of the will. The exercises here involve very simple, very slow, very deliberate physical movements performed with the full attention fixed entirely on the moving part of the body. The first exercise. Sit at a table with your fists resting closed on the surface, thumbs tucked under the fingers. Fix your gaze on your fist. Then, with exquisitely slow deliberation, extend the thumb, then the first finger, then the second, one at a time, paying complete attention to each movement, as though it were the most important action in the world. Then close them one at a time in reverse order. This is mind-numbingly slow and monotonous. That is exactly the point. The attention will rebel. It will try desperately to escape to something more interesting. Your task is to refuse. Hold it to the exercise. Repeat 5 times per session, then increase to 10. The second exercise is the old country practice of twirling the thumbs. Interlace your fingers, leaving the thumbs free, and slowly rotate one thumb over the other in a continuous circular motion while keeping the attention fixed entirely on the tips of the thumbs. Simple, maddening, enormously effective. The third exercise. Place the right hand on the knee with one finger extended. Move the fingers slowly from side to side, watching it with complete attention. These exercises might seem absurd. Atkinson knows this, but the result they produce in the mind's ability to control and direct its attention is profound. When you have disciplined your attention by forcing it to stay with the most tedious possible movements, you will find that holding it on important matters, on complex problems, on people and conversation, becomes almost effortless by comparison. Group C moves the attention outward to material objects in the environment. Take an uninteresting, familiar object, a pencil, a button, a plain stone. Sit with it for 5 minutes and keep your full attention on it and nothing else. Look at it from every angle. Think about what it is made of. Think about how it was made. Think about its uses. Think about its history. Think about everything connected with it. And refuse to let your attention go anywhere else. Atkinson's advice on choosing the practice object is important. Do not choose something interesting. An interesting object is easy to attend to. You need the training that comes from forcing your attention onto something that offers it nothing to feed on. The more boring the object, the more valuable the exercise. And here's a reward that Atkinson describes at the end of this exercise as progression. Eventually, when you have practiced long enough, you'll find that even uninteresting objects begin to reveal interest to you. The attention, denied its usual escape into distraction, learns to find depth and detail wherever it is pointed. This is not a small thing. This is the beginning of a genuinely expanded perception of the world. He closes a lesson with a summary of what all these exercises together are building toward. You are developing firm control over body and mind. You are becoming the master of your inclinations, not their servant. The power you gain over yourself, Atkinson says, will directly manifest as power over your circumstances and over other people. The man who conquers himself has no trouble impressing his will upon others. And this is no coincidence. It is a law of mental control expressing itself through the chain of being. What commands mind, mind commands body, body, and mind together commands circumstance. Continue the practice. Be satisfied with nothing less than genuine mastery of self. When you have achieved that, the mastery of your external world is already yours. Valedictory. And now we come to the final lesson, the farewell. Atkinson begins by acknowledging something quietly and without fanfare. He knows that those who have followed these lessons carefully will have felt, somewhere within them, a sense of recognition, not simply intellectual agreement, something deeper. The intuitive assurance that what is being described is true, that these forces are real, that the I am he has been pointing toward throughout this book is genuinely present within them, waiting for the recognition that will allow it to unfold. In a work of this size, he says with characteristic modesty, he can do no more than direct attention to the great facts underlying the science of mind, give a hint at the great truth. Acquaint the student with a few exercises that, if followed conscientiously, will develop their latent powers, the deeper aspects of the subject, the ones that take years of dedicated study and practice to fully enter, are beyond the scope of this particular work. But for anyone who feels a pull toward that deeper exploration, he extends an open invitation. More can be found. More can be learned. The door, once you have felt it, will not close on you. He makes a beautiful observation about what the study does to a person beyond the practical benefits. An intelligent understanding of the laws underlying the science of mind, he says, supplies the student with most elevating rule of life and conduct. It brings a realizing sense of one's own individuality, strength, and power. It awakens a consciousness of the reality and immanence of the real self, the I am. And with that consciousness comes a sense of new duties and the means to perform them. He speaks honestly about the state of the literature on this subject in his time. There is, he says, a great deal of froth and bubbles, grain thoughts surrounded by bushels of verbal chaff, words, 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 where ideas are what the searching mind needs. The works genuinely worth reading are few, but they exist, and the earnest student will find them. because the law of attraction operates in the realm of books and teachers just as surely as it does in the realm of circumstances. The student who is genuinely ready will find the teaching that matches their readiness. His advice to the sincere seeker: do not be captured by isms or swept into devotion to any particular leader or school. You have within yourself the real truth, and it will manifest gradually and naturally, the way a flower opens, not because you forced it, but because you gave it light and water and did not stand in its way. The small flame within you will throw light on all subjects and illuminate them, if you will only stop trying to put out with doubt and fear. And then Atkinson gives you the posture, literally and figuratively, with which to go forward. He says, do not crawl on your belly like a worm. Do not humble yourself in the dust and call yourself a miserable sinner. No, 1,000 times no. Rise to your feet. Raise your head. Face the sky. Throw back your shoulders. Fill your lungs. And then say to yourself, I am a part of the eternal life principle. I am created in the image of the divine. I am filled with the divine breath of life. Nothing can hurt me, for I am a part of the eternal. Say that and feel what happens in your body when you say it with genuine intention. That is not arrogance. That is recognition. That is the I am speaking to itself through the veil of a human personality. He speaks of the brotherhood of man with warmth and realism. All men are your brothers, he says with a smile. A pretty poor lot of relations in many cases, he admits, but brothers nonetheless. Do not impose upon your brother man, but do not allow him to impose upon you either. If you yield to someone against your own judgment and conscience, you are not serving them. You are not practicing humility. You are harming both of you. Do not start fights. But let no man wrong you without consequence. He offers what he calls a short rule of action, and it is worth memorizing. Wrong no man, and render unto every man his due. If every person held to that single principle, he says, there would be no need for lawyers, courts, or prisons. Life would seem one long, sweet song. Do your part in moving the world toward that result. And then one final caution, delivered with full seriousness. Do not misuse what you have learned. Do not drag these gifts through the mud. Use them freely and generously in your own behalf, in every legitimate way, but harm no man by means of them. The forces you're learning to work with are real. The laws that govern their consequences are equally real. Use them in the service of your life, your growth, your honest work in the world, and they will repay you beyond what you can currently imagine. If any of the teachings in this book seem difficult or unclear, Atkinson says, do not give up. Come back to the hard lesson. Read it again, and then, most importantly, enter the silence. Place yourself in a relaxed, receptive, inward-focused state that thought absorption produces. Hold the difficult concept quietly in that stillness, and a new light will break upon you. It always does. Knock, and it shall be opened. Ask, and you shall receive. And then, with the warmth of a man who has genuinely enjoyed the journey, he says goodbye. He expresses gratitude for your attention. He hopes the short acquaintance has been as pleasant for you as it has been for him. He hopes deeply that if has awakened in you new thoughts, new hopes, new aspirations, that you will make them manifest in actions and results, not just in your reading, not just in your dreaming, in the actual daily brick and mortar fabric of your lived experience, because that, in the end, is what all of this is for. Not philosophy, not entertainment. Life, your life, built deliberately from the inside out by the conscious and skillful use of the most powerful force nature has ever placed in human hands, the force of thought. And there we have it, The Complete Thought Force in Business and Everyday Life by William Walker Atkinson. 15 lessons. Written more than 100 years ago. And yet, sitting here with these ideas, you might find yourself wondering whether anything has really changed about the fundamental nature of the human mind and the forces that govern it. Whether the challenges Atkinson was speaking to, fear, self-doubt, the inability to concentrate, the failure to develop our latent powers, are somehow different today than they were in his time. They are not. If anything, they are more acute. The distractions are louder. The fear thoughts have more channels to travel through. The pull toward passive, scattered, unfocused living is stronger than ever, which means the teaching of this book is not less relevant today. It is more relevant. What is the central message Atkinson leaves us with? It is this: you are not a helpless creature buffeted by circumstances beyond your control. You are not at the mercy of luck, or the economy, or the opinions of powerful people, or the accidents of birth. You are being equipped with an extraordinary instrument, the trained, directed, concentrated force of your own thought. And with that instrument, used consciously and persistently, you can shape your character, influence your circumstances, attract the people and opportunities you need, and build the life you genuinely want. But you must believe it. You must want it. You must work for it. Not someday. Now, Atkinson does not flatter you. He does not tell you it will be easy or instantaneous. He tells you to do the exercises, to practice the gaze, to sit still, to hold the thought, to say, I can and I will, until those words stop being words and start being the truth you live from. He tells you to tear out fear and hate by the roots, because those two weeds are choking everything else in the garden of your mind. He tells you to recognize the I am, the real self that stands behind your body, behind your personality, behind even your mind, and to let that recognition become the ground from which every action and every thought arises. And if you do these things not perfectly, not all at once, but steadily, earnestly, without giving up, the promise that runs through every line of this book is that you will look back from a place you cannot yet fully imagine and realize that the turning point was here, in these lessons, in this decision to take your own inner life seriously. Atkinson said it best himself. The student who grasps the real significance of the law of mental control will have little desire to parade his knowledge. He will let his force manifest itself by results, not by boasting. So go and let it manifest in your work, in your relationships, in your health, in your sense of who you are and what you are capable of. The force is within you. It always has been. Now you know how to use it. Thank you for spending this time with one of the quiet masterworks of the New Thought tradition. If this audiobook has opened something in you, if it has planted even one seed worth tending, then William Walker Atkinson's work has done exactly what he intended it to do. And so has this narration. If you found value in this complete audiobook, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel. Every subscription helps bring more of this timeless wisdom literature to more people who are searching for exactly what you just found. Hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment sharing which lesson struck you most deeply, and share this with someone in your life who needs to hear it. Until next time, go forward strong in your new resolves and strong in your newfound strength.